Let's create some empty point. Okay, so go over to hierarchy, right click, and let's click on create empty game object. I'm gonna select an icon, so select the game object, go to inspector, over there click on here. I'm gonna select this yellow one and duplicate multiple times because we want to spawn from that. Okay, so control D for duplicate and select this move tool. I'm gonna move it over here and over here. I'm gonna create 5 point. Okay, from this 5 point I want to spawn this apple game object. To spawn this apple game object, we need to turn this into a prefab. To turn it into prefab, select that game object and drag it to assets. Okay, drag it to assets. Now it's turned blue, basically prefab, and we can delete it for now from the hierarchy or scene view. Okay, and let's create a script or a spawn script, something like that. Go over to assets, right click, create C# script, name it to something like spawn, and attach that script to any game object you like. I'm gonna attach to main camera, so select that game object, click on add component, and find the script by typing the name of it. Okay, spawn. So let's double click that to open up in Visual Studio. Okay, so I want to spawn this game object, this apple game object. If I go over to this apple prefab, okay, double click on it, I want to spawn this game object. Okay, from this point, from we will choose a random point, and from that point I want to spawn it. Okay, so we need a reference of this point uh, to spawn from this point. Okay, we need all of this point. So let's move to script one more time. Okay, one more time, and let's go over to top of our script and let's create public. Okay, public, so make it public so we can see through inspector. And we know these are transform, and transform is responsible for position. Okay, so we have to type transform. We know transform is responsible for position, but we do have multiple points. Okay, so what we have to do, we have to make it array. Array basically holds up multiple values. It can be numbers, it can be position, it can be game objects, whatever. Okay, so in square brackets we have to make, okay, for array, and let's call this spawn position. Okay, spawn positions, sorry, spawn, sorry, really sorry, spawn positions, and close that off with semicolon. Control S to save your code. Let's move to Unity. Okay, we need to drag all of this point to that array. Okay, to that array, and just wait for to compile. And from this 5 point we want to choose a random one, and from that point we just want to spawn our game object. Okay, so just wait for to compile. And if I select this main camera game object, wherever we attach the script over here, as you can see in the bottom, it says spawn position, which is says it's empty. So let's drag all of them right there. Okay, by one you can see. So 1 2 and this. Okay, we have all of the points. Okay, 0 is the first point. As you can see, 0 is the first point. Index 1 is the second point, index 2 is the third point, index 3 is the fourth point, index 4 is the fifth point. Okay, so let's double click that to open up in Visual Studio. And I want to spawn 8 whenever I try to click left mouse button. Okay, so let's go to script one more time, and we will make a function. Okay, for function, let's make it public void. For function we have to type void. Let's call spawn something like spawn apple. Okay, make some first bracket and some curly brackets. So what we want to do inside of this spawn apple function, we want to spawn spawn that apple. To spawn anything we have to use this function. It's called instantiate. Okay, as a first argument we have to type the game object we want to spawn. Okay, so let's make it comment for now by double slash. Okay, and let's go to top of our class. Okay, because we need this game object to spawn. Okay, we need this apple game object to spawn it. So let's create a field for that apple as well. Okay, let's make it public so we can set it inspector, that is game object we know, and let's call it apple prefab. Okay, apple prefab, and close that off with semicolon. Control S to save your code. Let's move to Unity one more time, and underneath of spawn position array, we gonna able to see an empty field of apple prefab game object will appear. So what we do need to do, we need to drag this apple right there. Okay, so just wait for to compile, and that by that field will be empty. Okay, so just wait for to compile. As you can see, apple prefab which says none. So let's drag this apple prefab right there. Now we have the position as well as the apple game object. Now we can spawn it. So let's go over to script one more time. Let's remove these two classes. So to spawn we have to use this instantiate function. As a first argument, it will take the game object we want to spawn, so in our case which is apple prefab. Okay, and the second thing, we have to pass the position from where we want to spawn it. Okay, let's suppose we want to spawn it from the first point. Okay, first so this index. Okay, first point. So what we have to do, we have to pass the array firstly spawn position and make first bracket, and we have to pass the point from which point we want to spawn it. Okay, let's suppose we want to spawn this first point. Okay, from this point, so we have to pass the index. So if I select this script one more time, as you can see, index of that point is 0. 0 index is the first point. Okay, so we have to pass the in square brackets the index. Okay, and dot we have to pass position, and the third argument, it will take the rotation. So let's pass quaternion dot identity. It's basically means no rotation. Okay, and close that up with semicolon. So we also want to call this function, and what this function will do, it will instantiate or spawn this apple prefab at this point with no rotation. Okay, so I wanna spawn it whenever I try to click left mouse button. So we will move over to update function, and we will check if input. Okay, input dot get mouse button down, and in brackets we can pass 0. 0 means the first point, and make some curly brackets. So if input dot get mouse button down means we just clicking the left mouse button. So what I want to do, I want to call this function spawn apple function, and we know what spawn apple function will do, and make some brackets and close that off with semicolon. Control S to save your code. Let's move to Unity. Okay, and hit this play button in the top. So when I try to click left mouse button, that apple game object will be spawned from the first point, because we pass the index 0. 0 means the first point. Okay, so we have to pass the index, and from that uh, the apple will be spawned. Okay, so if I hit this play button and try to click left mouse button, that apple game object will be spawned from the first point. Okay, so just wait for to compile, and if I try to click left mouse button. Okay, so we get some error. We are not able to see because the apple. Okay, so apple, if I select this apple, so apple layer is behind of our this background layer. So I'm gonna apple to this layer, I'm gonna delete it one. So if I hit this play one more time, you're gonna able to see that apple game object will be spawned from the first point. Okay, whenever I try to click left mouse button. So let's click left mouse button. We are not able to see our apple. Okay, okay, so the problem is, I'm gonna select this pink and background. Okay, so if I hit this play one more time, sorry, I really sorry. Basically apple layer is behind of our background layer, so make some sorting layer and assign it. Okay, so if I now try to click left mouse button, as you can see, apple game object is spawned from the first point. So we do not want to spawn it from the first one. Okay, we want to choose a random one, and from that point we want to spawn it. So our index should be random. So I'm gonna unplay this. Let's move to script one more time. Okay, so before we spawn, okay, what we want to do, we want to select a random. Okay, so we have to use this random dot range function. Okay, and we have to pass from start. Okay, so 0 comma, and we will pass spawn points. Okay, spawn points position dot length. Okay, and close that off with semicolon. So it will, so the random dot range function over here will return 0, and spawn position dot length means how many points we can see we have 5 points. So this one over here, spawn points dot length will be 5, but it will not include 5, it will include 0, and between 5 and between 0 and 5. Okay, so it can be 4 3 2 1 and 0. Okay, so let's store whatever we get, whatever random dot range function will return, we wanna store it into a variable. So let's store it, and we wanna store it into this random. Okay, let's call it index. Okay, equal to this. So this index over here, so whatever we get, okay, we storing into this index. So this index over here can be 0 1 2 3 4, because random dot range function will pick up a random number between 0 and spawn points dot length mean how many points we have 5 points, so it will not include 5, it will include 4. So this index will be 0 1 2 4, but it will be random. So let's replace this 0 instead index. Okay, and we know index will can be 0 1 2 3 4. Okay, so control S on your keyboard to save your code. So you're gonna able to see that index will be random, and we pass index into this array. Okay, so it can be 0. So let's suppose it if it's become 1, and we know index 1 is the second point, so it will spawn from the second point, but this index over here will be random. It can be 0 1 2 3 4, because over here, as you can see, firstly we getting the result. Okay, and we storing into this index. So if I go to Unity one more time, hit this play button in the top and try to click left mouse button. Okay, so just wait for to compile, and if I try click left mouse button, as you can see, it's spawned from the this point. Okay, which is the index 4, means the fifth point. Okay, as you can see, it's spawning from random point. Okay, whenever I try to click left mouse button. So I hope you get the idea how you can spawn a random apples from randomly. Okay, from random position. I'm gonna unplay this. So I hope you get the